like becoming a PT.
I just hit
And
record, but just in case we get something good.
that's fair.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I had seen, and then especially through my own one spiritual awakening, which really opened up through grief, like the really
Mm,
first kind of like very difficult grieving process that I went through. I was able to really open up to a larger, more energetic fear of healing and a
mm,
way of helping people that I it's funny that I always saw and I always knew there were certain things when I was very kind of like in the physical, just like pure science, like
yes.
very Western world. There were
Hmm.
always little kind of things that didn't
Signs.
line up in terms of like certain clients, like, you got better, but technically, like, you didn't do like half of the things that like science says should have made you better, or
Mm,
whatever it is. And I had many of those experiences through my time in more of like the Western medicine type of practice that then, grief has a beautiful way of just kind of like breaking you wide open.
mm,
That it
mhm,
just kind of like propelled me, to go
mhm.
even deeper. And I just love, and I think that is truly how we need to see people as entire beings,
Mm,
both, the physical and the emotional, the energetic, like all of it, because
mhm.
we're all one.
Yeah. It's so beautiful. I knew it. I was like, I better hit record now before, because I'm like, we're gonna jump right in. But it's so beautiful. So today I'm here with Dr. Zazu, and she is a doctor of physical therapy, and she pulls in the physical, of course, and the spiritual and the mental, taking it into this full, actually holistic view. And not just addressing like this is this prescription that Western medicine says that you need, but these are all the other areas when we pull in our soul into the healing, when we pull in
Mm,
the energetics, how this completely changes the game. It's something that science necessarily can't explain, like these
nope.
spontaneous healings. It's like, well,
Hmm.
technically, if you would have just did the homework that was on the paper that the Western world told me that I should prescribe, then that doesn't explain how you got this incredible result. And so it's through your own grief and your own experience and through the clients that you have seen and helped that you've been able to like test it. I'm sure, like test it and then
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
this stuff is powerful.
It is. It really is. And I think I own my private practice, Phoenix Physical Therapy, out of Woodcliff Lake, New Jersey, but I see people virtually internationally and across the
Mm,
nation. And it is, something to be said that, there is this necessary combination and deepening that
mhm,
is needed for really true and deep healing that by the time that people get to me, they've gone through all of the prescriptions. They've gone through all of the PT. They've gone through like all of the things that are generally offered first within our like Western medical system. And they they are often told, that they are broken, that there is something wrong with them. Like it's something that is wrong with them. And in reality, it is the nature in which we see people and try to help people and the lens that is oftentimes so hyper focused on what it is that we can prove and what it is that we can see
mhm.
that completely leaves out the individual that's in front of you. And I am also like a science nerd. I am really just a balance of it all and I love it. And um it's interesting to me because a lot of the people that I encounter and a lot of colleagues, that I have that are very deep in the science world, there's more and more science of what we can, you know, research that actually proves and supports the unseen implements or, things that we need to consider when someone is trying to heal both physically, but we can't tease out the mental, emotional, spiritual component of every being. That is how we get true healing, regardless of whether it's just physically, which a lot of people start that way, but then I think come to realize that, hey, there's actually something deeper going on as well as my physical symptoms.
Yeah, and that's interesting that you say it that way. And I have a question. So, do you see it
Yeah.
as it happens and manifests physically, or do you feel that mentally it's the chicken or the egg situation, right? So, are we mentally there and then the body follows that message? Or do you feel that the body is thrown off, or do you feel like this is just like a bi-directional relationship where it can go either one and it's kind of like this?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's bi-directional.
Hmm.
So, I mean, we are beings in and of themselves, both in the physical and the energetic and the spiritual. We are divine. That's what I believe. And we are just so beautifully and like intricately made that there are, some systems inside of us that can get triggered by an external injury, we'll say, or an external threat that may happen. And your body may just automatically go into, oh no, I need to protect myself, which can, mean that there's a physical injury, or could actually just have your body and trigger your body into the sensation, like pain, being one of the sensations. Or I've seen all sorts of manifestations of our, physical symptoms of what is at the end of the day, your body's trying to protect you from something. And so, what that something is, though, is, it's like all of the colors in the crayon box it could be. There's not just physical, like I tripped over a branch and a bear's gonna come eat me type deal, which is more where I think scientifically and like the research really comes up across. However, like that reflexive protection that our bodies basically have inherited from the oldest parts of our brain. However, uh, you can emotionally feel unsafe and have the same type of physical sensations and manifestations coming up. And so we can work on the physical body all we want, but unless we actually address, okay, what is it or what combination of things, which is generally that's what it is, a combination of things. And there's where that like bi-directionality kind of comes in. Is it that your body is responding to that is creating this current experience that you're having? And where can we start to pull some levers, and where can we start to address across the entire spectrum of what potentially could be triggering your body? So maybe there is some physical irritation of, tissue, but maybe that physical irritation is actually happening because your body is fearing that it's under threat, whether that be emotionally feeling unsafe, or physically you're actually unsafe because the tissue is vulnerable, because the tissue has been injured.
Mhm.
Um, and those are just two, you know, those are just kind of like two examples. But I've seen things that have come up in terms of going all the way over into more of like the spiritual, all the way over into the spiritual in terms of even just like past life.
Mhm.
Um, things coming up in the body, and your body is like responding to these things, or very deep ingrained lessons that we learned as children in order to survive and cope within. whatever environment that we were in. So
That's
it's
interesting. I was gonna ask, yeah, you're great at reading minds, so you probably already know that by now because you're so in tune with source. And so every time I have a thought, you answer it. And so I'm like, good, she's getting it. Um, so you're tying in the I was gonna ask, and how does this tie in or tie back to the childhood unmet needs? Do you oftentimes have
Mm,
to take it back that far to help people reprogram around those unmet needs? Yeah.
1,000%, 1,000%. I honestly, I would probably say that 9 out of 10 people that I see, if we dilute things down, because I think a lot of times it's really easy for us to, and it's because we're built this way. We're in a human body and we got to deal with, stuff that's all around us right now. We have to figure out what to do with it. But I think it's very easy to kind of come in seeking a solution for, we'll say, like pelvic pain. I see a lot of
Mhm.
people with pelvic pain, or endometriosis or other sort of, pelvic conditions or infertility and things like that. And a lot of times, again, like 9 out of 10 times, we're coming and we're seeking a solution for this discrete thing that's going on or experience that we're having. But in reality, we have to dilute it down and see, okay, well, what is the common denominator across, looking at our entire lifespan and all of the experiences that we have had during our current life? And where are things seeming similar in terms of patterns, whether it be patterns that we are kind of like relationally um, processing or are usually kind of in, whether that be romantic relationships, whether that be familial or friends, like support, that kind of thing. And where are we and our response pattern, where is that also becoming very repetitive or redundant? A lot of
Mhm.
the times, if we can take a look at, oh, wow, okay, you feel like this right now, you know, when was the first time you ever felt that?
Mhm.
And taking a look back, it's really kind of it's like zooming out and looking at your entire life and starting to put some pieces together that oftentimes we need somebody's help to do because we, especially if we're having an experience where there's pain, whether it be physical pain or emotional pain, it is sometimes difficult to kind of like rise out of that, to be able to see a larger perspective and be able to take a look at, okay, well, what are some things that I can control, or what are some things that, I can regain my power back and release any fear around. And that tends to be kind of like the breadcrumbs back to,
Yeah.
okay, like this is actually the healing that needs to be done. Like I know your
Yeah.
shoulder hurts, but been grieving and you haven't fully grieved the loss of a partner, of a parent, of whatever it may be, of a child. And I think it's very interesting because a lot of people may not put those things together.
Mhm.
And again, once you're really deep in that experience and you've been there for a while, we all are made to accept support.
Mhm.
So, and be supported throughout our journey. So, yeah.
That is beautiful. I love the connections because it so deeply relates to the work that I am doing with my clients as well, where I'm like, we're looking at these signs and symptoms. And typically, I find in the Western world, we look at a signs and symptom and we want to correct it with a medication and get you out the door. But it's like the breadcrumb trail that you're talking about is looking for the root cause of the unsettledness in the body, and then why or where is that actually stemming from, right? So like we can get all sciencey and we can look at these different regions in the body and how it should work and how it should function. But ultimately, like if even subconsciously deep layers
Mm-hmm.
down, right? Like that's kind of like
Yeah.
the bread
Yeah.
trail, right?
Yep.
Like deep, keep going down because we don't we might not even realize in a time of hurt that we have made up a new way of being. You know, I
Correct.
got hurt this time, and so now I'm going to protect myself like this, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like,
Yep.
with women, have it be like some type of sexual experience that was really awful, and like
Mm-hmm.
literally guarding the womb space, like actually
Yep.
learning to say no and shut these organs down, um
Mm-hmm.
and or like having like unfortunate events that's like I didn't like this, I didn't want this, have it be rape, sexual assault, or maybe just like not even really having full understanding of their body and full acceptance of it, have it be
Mm-hmm.
upbringing or whatever, that they're
Yeah.
actually, and I feel too as a woman in this culture, we have made it be like the menstrual cycle is something dirty and it's a pain in the
Mm-hmm.
butt. And it's not like
Yep.
what it was in the old days when it was this celebration. Like when young women used to get their menstrual cycle, it was a time where all the people in the community together came and held her and honored her. Like she is
Mm-hmm.
stepping into this amazing, it was like this tribute to this girl
Yeah.
becoming a woman, and
Mm-hmm.
now it's like, okay, well, here's a tampon, stick this up there and let's not talk about it. And you're hormonal and, like we can't deal with
Yeah.
your emotional, erratic like behavior. And it's like
Yeah.
so far from the truth of that, like that old ceremony and like responding
Yeah.
to the woman's cycle, like it is the
Mm-hmm.
blossoming of an
Mm-hmm.
incredible part in their lives,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so, all these little things that kind of get programmed into us. And then in addition, at such a young age, kids are going on contraceptives, like here, what are you going to take? The pill, or are you going to put this injection in your arm? Or what are you going to take to not get pregnant? So there's that mental piece that for a long time is telling us, don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant. I don't want this. It's bad if I do. And then, as people decide, I want to get pregnant or whatever, they're like, why isn't it happening? And it's like
Yeah.
those messages that we have been programming into ourselves that actually it listened well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 1,000%. And the other thing is that you bring up a great point because you know, it is basically right as, people with periods and
Mhm.
with uteruses, we we have specific periods of time across our lifespan
Mhm.
that are literally like guideposts of alignment and like coming into the next level of our evolution, of our being, of our power. And these are cycles that are not only normal, but like you said, are rich with ritual and ceremony and like opportunity to really evolve into the next version of ourselves. But what I have seen and what, historically we've seen, at least over these last 500 plus years, is that, you know, women are cyclical creatures. Those are part of our cycles. And we have then monthly cycles. And that is how our energy is made to be productive, is made to be like how we are supposed to be. Yet the mainstream society has been very masculine, which is okay, go, 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 go. We don't work on cycles. We
Yeah.
just like go exponentially forward, which there's nothing wrong with the masculine. It's that we have been trying to, through fear, through shame, through actual persecution, if we want to get real in terms of history,
Mhm.
um, trying to beat down, the feminine's cyclical, natural nature and make it fit into the mold of the masculine. And it's like, okay, our bodies are very adaptive, and especially under stress, our bodies will, the very first thing, that they will try to do is to help us to survive. And so if we can survive another day, by continuing to try to change, our physiology, our body's going to try to do that. However, that is not without cost. And that's also not without struggle and challenge, because you're trying to, you know, be something that in reality, like, that's not how your system works. And there will be times where you will be in your masculine, because I do believe that both men and women in particular who identify that way are, we are a beautiful balance of the two. However, if we look at our physiology just straight up, we can see very clearly that our physiology is different, and that's beautiful. That is what creates a beautiful balance, is because we are different. And so the thing is that, a period is inconvenient for productivity,
Yeah.
and
And
for
so is childbirth. And so is, yes.
so is menopause. Like, it's
Yes.
interesting, isn't it? Like, at all of those large milestones in a woman's life in particular, we have been trained to distrust our bodies. Like, we are separate from our bodies, and we need an external source to come in and manage what's going on at each of those phases, when in reality, our bodies hold the wisdom and hold the medicine that each of us individually needs.
Mm.
And we, there's this beautiful saying, I can't remember where I heard it from, but it was basically like, I remember hearing it during my from some, it was like during my PT school time period, where it was like, if you listen, to a client enough, they'll tell you what's wrong with them.
Yes.
If you listen to a client even better, they'll tell you how, like, what they need to
How to
heal.
fix it. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think that we have not done a great job in terms of like the Western medicine on either A or B of that saying. So we are starting to get, I think, a bit better, at least at the A, but the B is still very prescriptive and not individualized for the
Hmm.
person that's in front of them. And so that, again, from the people that I work with, a lot of times, like, leads them to feel like there's something wrong with them, when in reality it's not that something's wrong with you. It's just that, you know the people that you've been, working with, have not been able to truly see you as a full entire being, and been able
Yeah.
to address and support you, through that,
Hmm.
if that makes sense.
It does. It really does. And it has me thinking that because our Western practitioners can't show up for the time and space that they need to allow that person to discover it or to reveal it to them, it actually has led people to all mistrusting their bodies, meaning they've never even tried to think of it or work it out. And then
Hmm.
instead hand over their power and be like, hey, doctor so and so who I've never met, and I have 10 minutes with you. I see you 1 minute a year, even though I live in my body every day, even though I have a pretty good idea of what's happening. here,
Yeah.
can you tell me what's going on? And the doctor doesn't have the time. I mean, I
Hmm.
remember, I think it was my grandma's day, or even like my mom, like the doctors were like their friends because they were allowed to sit with them. Doctor's appointments
Yeah.
were like an hour and a half long. Like you would go in, and so the doctor could hear
Yeah.
all of those parts and help you discover and find out what is the best path. And that's where I'm seeing that gap in communication right now, the gap in
Yeah.
that the world that, now we're just trying to prescribe and send them out the door. And one of my friends who's a doctor said that the term that they use in the hospital is treat them and street them, treat them and street them.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so,
Yeah.
she said this while she was crying because, she herself is now on all the medications and overweight and unhealthy, struggling with endometriosis, struggling with all of the areas. And it's this belief that this is okay. This is like that, and that this is
Hmm.
normal and that you're wrong and that you can't be healed. It's like, yes, if you
Yeah.
have the practitioners who are looking at you, giving you
Hmm.
space to find the part of you that actually knows how to heal, and
Yeah.
start to lean into those intuitive moments that we actually all are capable of seeing and feeling and experiencing, but we've become so detached from our bodies. We're really into the
Yeah.
mind, but we're detached from the body. So
Hmm.
this kind of like leads me into like some of the work that you do with womb healing. And
Mm.
yeah, and I'd love to hear because
So good.
I just see womb healing. I have chills in my body right now just from like jumping into this topic. So with the womb healing, I love to hear from you. Like how you got into it. What does that look like? And also like who is this for? Because for these women who are really trying to support their fertility or their vitality, because there's some women who
Hmm.
may not be thinking like I'm trying to get pregnant right now. There might be some women who are really struggling for a long time to get pregnant and can't figure out what's broken because the system told them
Yeah.
after 1 year they're infertile. And
Hmm.
then we also have people who are learning that like the menstrual cycle and ovulation is just part of a health vital sign. Like if these things are all
Yes.
actually regulated and our hormones are working well and our gut health as well, then our cycles shouldn't be with pain and we should be vibrant and living. So maybe they're not even here for
Yeah.
like conception is key, but like I love to lean into womb healing. Who's it for?
Yeah.
How has it helped support some of the people that you've seen? And yeah, just share anything on the topic.
I would love to. So, it's really interesting to me because womb healing in particular, and so for me, I'm a doctor of physical therapy, a pelvic health physical therapist, I'm a birth doula, and I'm also a Reiki master. So,
Yay.
I just kind of full spectrum from physical body to energetic body, and our wombs, I think for a lot of people, we don't necessarily think about, where we hold most of our like life force energy.
Mhm.
And so for those of us who have wombs, and whether you have had your womb surgically removed, like some people, have had hysterectomies, um, your womb space is still energetically there. That is still like, think of it as like a cauldron, it is just this beautiful chalice of your life force energy. And so it's not just like the seat of where you can create life if you wanted to have a baby, but it's actually the seat of your energy and of your life force. And so there that being said, like when we go through traumas, when we go through very intense emotions, so that could be the depths of grief, but that could also be the heights of joy and excitement and pleasure. Like I have had kind of people across like all the spectrum, from people who are trying to conceive and have been trying to conceive for a while, to actually people who just, kind of wake up, women in particular who wake up and who kind of feel like there's something missing in their life. They feel like they're gusto for life, for, just kind of like they're just kind of going through the motions, but nothing like lights them up, it's like when you've got, like the yummiest, chocolate mousse. It's like the like it's just like when if you're like a foodie, if your favorite food and you just like you happy dance, like it's like
Yeah.
that, the heights of joy and pleasure, or if it's like, having intimacy and orgasm and the heights of that as well. To also holding for us really heavy emotions. And so that could also be anger,
Mm-hmm.
resentment. A lot of the emotions that, especially as women, we are kind of programmed that are programmed to think that they're bad,
Mm-hmm.
programmed to think that they don't have a place, that we should be kind of ashamed of them. We shouldn't make people uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Things like we should be pleasing to like things that basically create this bottling in effect of emotions that, society has deemed and then we have absorbed to deem for ourselves as not worthy of being expressed, and or a lot of guilt and shame and even fear around expressing them. And so I have seen a lot of people in particular, along their fertility journey, that, their cauldron or their chalice in their womb is kind of filled with these really intense emotions that they're they're filled to the top. They need some sort of integration, some sort of place to breathe and to be seen. And that is the only way that we're able to actually honor them and allow them to integrate into our being as a whole, because they all carry, all emotions in particular carry lessons
Mm-hmm.
for us.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we deem, anger, for example, like, oh, I'm annoyed at this person because, they called me when I'm off, off social hour or whatever it is. Like, okay, but I'm not going to say anything. Okay, well, that's your body telling you there was a boundary that was crossed. And
Mm-hmm.
what you just said to your body was that, you know what? You
Yeah.
can let people cross your boundary, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, your body is going to say, okay, well, she doesn't hold me in safety within the boundaries that honor me.
Mm-hmm.
And so these things can add up over time and can just kind of create just this
Mm-hmm.
heaviness and this fullness, especially at, the seat of our like creative and passion and,
Yeah.
pleasure, life force energy at our womb space. And so if our womb is kind of holding on to all of these things, that can create kind of misalignment with, okay, well, I want to make space for another life to come in and to inhabit that space. And so that's something that I work with a lot of my clients as to, okay, well, what's taking up the space right now?
Mm-hmm.
No judgment. Let's just let's explore. Let's
Mm-hmm.
just, we're going on a treasure hunt. Let's see
Yes.
what's there. Because it is all
That is,
treasure. It is all
yeah,
treasure.
yeah, it is, no matter what comes up. And so I'm interested to hear, and then as we wrap up, like you have so much to share, it's amazing. But it was not until I went through my third birth and then did a pelvic therapy session, an internal pelvic therapy with a birth doula, with a massage therapist, where when she did an internal release, I
Mm-hmm.
literally felt areas in my neck when she was inside my yoni, in my neck release. I had
Mm-hmm.
tears. I shed away trauma from previous experiences that were not, that I was holding on to, that I had no idea. I was getting third eye activation visions of moments where I was like
Mm,
incredibly, I got up and I lost 20 pounds. I swear to God, I literally
yeah.
lost 20 pounds. And so
Hmm.
I'm curious to hear, like, when you're doing your pelvic therapy aspect and working with womb clearing, if like that physical, that palpating the muscle and touching and
Hmm.
activating, because we have our three big grounding chakras there, right? We have root, we have
Yep.
sacral, we have solar plexus. So this is a
Yep.
big deal if you're holding on to something here, because it will
Hmm.
block then your ability to connect with your heart, your throat, your third eye, and your crown. And so,
Exactly.
when we're talking about it, have you like witnessed that where like a woman would be like, I'm coming in for like a pelvic floor therapy and then end up having like a complete release where they're like embarrassed or like wasn't expecting it?
Yes, this is why I have lots of tissues in my office. And I always tell
Yes.
people, I don't think you can. But most of us, so we, with the pelvic floor internal, techniques in particular,
Hmm.
whenever, especially down in our pelvic bowl and in our pelvic chalice, once we allow someone into that space that is holding the space for you while also gently stimulating in through those tissues. Now, I have had this happen both physically as I'm actually physically stimulating those tissues, and I've also had this happen energetically as I'm doing hands off energetic work
Mm,
around that area.
yeah.
But yes, our body goes, oh my God, someone is actually here for me.
Oh.
And I think it has a lot to do with creating a sacred space and a sacred and safe environment for each person and their system to be able to take a
Mm,
breath
mm,
and start to come out of that like acute protection and that
mm,
acute guarding that
mm,
a lot of times, comes on for a specific experience or series of experiences, but like as you kind of mentioned before, then becomes habit over
mhm,
time,
mhm,
long time after maybe those initial experiences actually happened. And
mm,
so I've had people go through literally, like, I allow people to move their body in whatever way, like it's a
mhm,
collaborative space. I just say, whatever you feel, like, let it move through you. Your body will not show you anything or bring anything to your attention that is too much. It's actually exactly what you need in that moment. So don't resist it, lean
let it be.
into it and
Yes.
feel it fully. And I've had people literally get into birthing positions
Mm,
from birth trauma that they had
yes.
experienced.
Yes.
Yeah, so I've had people, go through just allowing their body to take them and their womb to take them to the depths of the healing that actually is what was needed, and having their body physically go through the positions where they experience trauma. So I've had people going through kind of the literally putting their legs in the positions of which they gave birth, and they experience trauma, as well as sexual assault. And these are not things that generally are held space for in the presence
Mm,
of other women. And that is actually part of the healing that is needed, is to actually be able to see the experience that the person went through, for them to be able to see it and experience it in a context of safety and in
Hmm.
a context of support, where
Yes.
they can actually allow and help their body to move through what their body had continued to guard against.
Yes.
So it's
Yes, and
actually
it's not
quite
until, yeah,
to
they're when they're
behold.
cracked open that they can feel safe to experience it again and then have the need met, have the emotional support for them to go back into it. So that is incredible. It's incredible, I'm sure, for you to witness it and to
It is
be
a
holding
privilege.
space, energetically and emotionally and clearing it from these people, from these women who didn't even know it was stored, or subconsciously we knew, but like we just
Hmm.
didn't know how to get the support that we needed to get rid of it.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh.
definitely. Our conscious mind does a great job of, keeping us going in our day-to-day activities, and especially if we have little ones or people to take care of,
Hmm.
our conscious mind is always going to try to help us to get through every single day. But what is underneath in the subconscious and in, even the areas or the shadows of repressed emotions or experiences, and even your being able to express what's on your heart and what's on your voice and your throat. Your womb is actually connected to your heart as well as your throat as well.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it really can just be life changing and transformational work.
Totally. Totally. It's so beautiful. Wow. It was so great to have you here and sharing your insights, Dr. Zazu. Your work is really beautiful. I have chills from my toes to my neck when I say that. And so I mean it. It's so beautiful to have practitioners out there like you. And I would love for you to share, how do people work with you? You do online, you do one-on-one, you do group, you have lots of different options. So please share.
I do. I do. Yeah, I have lots of different options because I see a lot of different people at all different points, in their journeys. And so I believe that even, just a 15-minute free conversation can really plant the seed or continue somebody on in their path for healing. So I have all of my services on my website at www.phoenix, so PHOENIX.info. And I see people, like you mentioned, virtually, nationally, internationally, as well as I have online programs like, pelvic floor specific postpartum healing programs, which I find are so powerful, birth healing circles, and as well as pregnancy and being able to, and this is something we didn't get into, but maybe another conversation, is connecting in with your womb and
Yes.
your body and your future child in the
Mm.
conception and in pregnancy, and
Hmm.
actually being able to um, call in their wisdom to help you prepare for birth. It's so beautiful. I'm like so I just love it. It's so
Yes.
good. That's a whole nother conversation. But
Yes,
but
we
yeah,
need
calling
to.
in that wisdom.
I love that.
So
I'm like stoked. We will jump back on and teach that because I feel there's a lot of power in that. And it's not until I had, each one of my pregnancies was really different as I awoke or had my own spiritual awakenings. And so I totally felt the difference of like me and my mind with my first one and doing the science thing and just, following
hmm
the Western world, then me driving more into my body and being more feminine with the second one and my intuition, to the third one, which was completely spiritual from before conception when the soul entered on the left side of
mm,
my shoulder to tell me I was coming, to like
hmm
the manifestation of him coming into this world. And literally the entire time through birth, being like, I'm here in 1 hour, had this blissful birth on a toilet. And it was
oh,
incredible. So, like, I've had the range of
beautiful.
them. And so, yes, teaching women that they can actually connect with the spirit before is really powerful. And
Yes.
also connecting to the baby in the womb is really, really powerful. So I would love to have another conversation about that with you.
So good.
Thank
So
you so
good.
much for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yes, bye-bye.
Bye.
Yay! Oh my God, you're a powerhouse. I love you. I lost your voice. I love you. I'm so happy. I just was like feeling like I cannot wait to talk to her. And I was like your bio in one of your posts for your podcasts. I was like, I said to my husband, honey, listen to this. I'm like, she does this connects it all. And he's like, oh my God, she's you. And I'm like, yeah, except she's like a doctor of physical therapy. And I'm like, not. I'm like, I'm just like a
Hey,
health
we all
nerd.
have our wisdom. I love
I
that.
know.
It's so funny because it's funny because I was talking to Paulina earlier this week,
Yeah.
and we were talking about just like how important it is and how I just truly feel like finding other women
Mhm.
who have heard the call,
Yes.
like are
Yes.
answering the call,
Yes.
like we've been called to this like mission of
Yeah.
really like this revolution in the feminine and
Mm-hmm.
in refinding like that balancing point out of love and empowerment
Mm-hmm.
and helping people integrate and find their way along their journey, releasing like the fear and the programming
Mm-hmm.
and all of the things that, you know, they've internalized are like reasons why they're wrong or
Mm-hmm.
reasons why, like they are having trouble like connecting like
Yeah.
to themselves,
Yeah.
like
Exactly. They've been programmed not to. Yeah, it's so
yeah,
true. During the podcast, you were talking about the different cycles. So are you aware or did you study the infradian cycles?
I have not.
Oh my God, you're gonna love this. So I'm gonna send you this. So the infradian cycle, I mean, you intuit it, so you already know about it. But so In the Flow is a book I recently got, and I'm in love with it. And it talks
Okay.
about the infradian cycle, and so it talks about how the hormones change throughout the
Hmm.
cycle. And so, like, we're not supposed to eat like men. We're not supposed to train like men. We're not supposed to sleep like them. And so, during the different states of like, we're getting the release of progesterone right now. So, this is
Hmm.
actually a time to feed the body, which it can break down. So, it needs like foods that's easy to break down. Like you're building up this uterine lining and you're either
Hmm.
preparing for a baby to be in there, or if this egg isn't fertilized, you're preparing to lose a lot of blood. So either
Yep.
way, like this in the second part in the luteal phase, you then eat these warm broths and soups. It's kind of like your postnatal meals. And then,
Hmm.
your fresh fruits, your raw fruits and veggies you eat like during the first part of the follicular when you're like estrogen and progesterone have reset, you're starting at the beginning. So, anyways, she talks about the infradian cycle and like how we sleep, eat, train, live. And basically, she talks about how we've been conditioned to operate like men, which is high peak testosterone in the morning, and then it slowly, gradually tapers off. So, we're all expected to do the same thing every day, all day, 365 days a year. But women, we actually are not the same 365 days a year. Like, actually, every day is really different with our hormones. So, like, in order to live like a woman, then that means that we're not living like a man. So we're not meeting like you and your self practice. And I actually work with another holistic doctor. And it wasn't until we started talking about how she had been working like a man. And then she would have to
Yep.
take an entire week off because she would have such bad cycles. She'd lay out on her ground and her body was literally dropping her to the earth. And I was like, if
Yep.
you start actually getting the rest before your menstrual cycle, like the body's calling in, you won't need to be laid out during your menstrual cycle. You can still function and be a normal human. So and
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, but I didn't want to put you on the spot and be like, do you know about this? And then I'd be like, no, but you were like intuiting so much of that with like how we have our cycles within and we're not
Hmm.
men. We don't operate the same way from a hormonal standpoint, but society has taught us that, like, even the women that I coach, it's like they're like, well, I compare myself to my spouse. I'm like, but why? Genetically, we're actually not the same. Our brains are not the same. There's so many components of
Hmm.
our brain that are actually really different. Why are we trying to compete or compare with men? We're women.
Yeah, and I know why. And this would be a whole nother conversation. It's like,
Oh my
but
gosh.
it's so interesting to me because it's just like if you think about it, and who was I was having this conversation with somebody in terms of just even birth control, right? Like when
Yeah.
birth control, hormonal birth control came onto the scene, it was seen as this like liberation. Because
Mm-hmm.
before then, if you were married and you got pregnant, well, guess what? Didn't matter if you didn't want the baby, you were
Yeah.
having it. And
Yeah.
so there's it kind of like came as this like, hey,
Heaven.
now you're back in control. However, it completely disregarded, okay, the whole point, which is to get, in tune with your body. And
Yeah.
you know, you can actually, like, if you just know your cycle and
Yeah.
you actually track your cycle, you
Yes.
can do the same thing,
Yes.
like it tried to make a medication be a solution for a societal issue when in
Mm-hmm.
reality it was a societal issue that
Mm-hmm.
needed to be, like fixed. But it's
Yes.
like we're in this, was it with Paulina? I can't remember. We're like in these cycles where it's like, women are less than. You know what? No, women can do everything men can do and better. Okay, well, if women
Yes.
can do everything men can do, that means that women work like men. Women can work like men. But now we're
Yes.
coming back around because, of course, like,
Yes.
all of this burnout. And yeah,
Right.
you're not working with your system. Just because you're different doesn't mean you're lesser. And that's like the root of the
Mm-hmm.
belief that has been plaguing our societies for thousands of years. So,
Mm-hmm.
maybe like the last few hundreds of years, because we go really far back, women and men. Women
When
and
women
men
were
are
on
like a
top,
little,
when the
yeah,
babies ruled.
goddesses, right? Worship
Yeah,
goddesses,
exactly.
all of that stuff. So, but yeah, and I think that it's very interesting. I think that people being able to um actually like track their cycles and be able to be one, learn what their body's messages are through their cycles.
Yes.
Um, that is where it sounds like basically like right in line with what you're saying about,
Yeah.
that cycle. So I
Absolutely.
I love to see like redundancy whenever, right? Like we see like
Yes.
redundancy in life, it's like similar thoughts in just different words or from different people,
Yes,
and we know it's a
exactly.
truth. So,
Exactly. It's
yeah.
like just like the way you're explaining it through the way you studied. It's like, yes, this is exactly it. But it is the different way of saying it. And sometimes saying it a different way allows it to seep in a different way
Yes,
to people. It's like, oh,
totally.
okay, I didn't get it A, B, C, D, E, F, or G, but here I go. I got it now,
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And you know what? We're human. A lot of times it does take about 100 times to
Yeah,
like before it like
exactly.
you start to sink in. But also I think that like, we absorb whatever we're ready and we're willing,
So
at whatever
true.
time. And,
Yeah.
just like we are not born knowing how our entire life is gonna go, because if we were, then that would kind of defeat the purpose.
Yes.
But
Well, it's
you're
interesting. I
shown like
had
the next step
Yeah. In
one
my
at a time.
spiritual awakening, I had a vision of my death, and it was like, rather soon because like a health nerd. And so that's
Mhm.
our whole reason for coming to Hawaii was this vision. My husband and I were like, I got my clairvoyancy, all the things, people, dead, alive, everybody's coming through me. I can heal them with my hands. I can sense it. All the things open up just like that overnight. And
Mhm.
I was like, holy cow, like this is not my scientific, this is what time is it, what day is it? It is the opposite of it. It's like a completely different human I am. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, for people who knew me a couple hours ago, I'm not the same anymore. Like
Yeah.
I want to talk about this stuff. And so I'm like, sorry, now that you're around me, you're gonna get into like the depths of your soul and shit like this. And
Yeah.
so the stuff that really matters. And
Yeah.
so anyways, where were you going with what you just said? Good God dang. But so I started asking my clients because I couldn't tell anybody back in my hometown, like, oh yeah, I had like a spontaneous awakening. And last night, like my husband's body entered into mine and I started clearing all his shit. And I like was dropped on the ground and I had to keep like Wim Hof breathing to clear his energy chakras
Mm,
because I like
yeah.
took it in my own body and I had to get it out of him because I couldn't be around him. And
Hmm.
I couldn't like just say that and to these people I'm like around.
Yeah.
So I just asked them this one question because it was what was revealed to me during this journey, my spiritual awakening. And I said, if you knew the time of your death, would you want to know? Would you want to know you have
Hmm.
1 year? Would you want to know you have 10 years? Would you want to have 5? I just wanted to like start to get the general consensus. Not
Okay.
one person said they want to know. Not one person.
Yeah.
Isn't that
I mean,
interesting?
that is interesting, and I feel like I've thought about this question before many a time.
Yeah.
And I think initially, I'm sure it's different for every person, but for me initially, and when I thought about this question, I don't know, like 10 years ago, I was like, yes, I definitely want to know. I
Yeah.
definitely want to know. However, that for me, I think was coming from a place of wanting to be able to like control,
Mm,
not not surrender. So for me
right.
now, I feel like my initial response is no, I don't want to know, but not out of fear, actually because I want to be present and I want to continue
Oh, being
to
in now.
like be in the now. Exactly. So,
Mm.
but I'm sure, somebody could say, no, I don't want to know. And it is out of fear. And,
Yeah, yeah,
but for
exactly.
me, but
Yeah.
it's such a good question though.
It really is because
And
when my husband and I talking about it, I'm like, I don't think that I would have wanted to know. I would be like, no, don't talk to me about death. But after I had experienced it through these like awakenings, now I'm like, I'm not creeped out by death. Like before I was
oh, I
like
love that.
debilitated. Yeah, you're like, okay, now.
Yeah.
So once I found out, I was like, okay, so maybe I misinterpreted this vision. But then I talked to a couple of healers and they're like, no, that was definitely, you got the message. They were like channels. And as I'm talking to them, they're like,
Yeah.
you received the message correctly. You got the message. And I'm sitting there like, fuck, well, this is a twisted vision. I wish I didn't see it. And now, like Eric and my husband and I we did it all. We're like, okay, well, where do you want to live? And I'm like, I want to live in Hawaii. So we just up and left and moved to Hawaii. And then we're like, well, what do you want to do? And I'm like, well, I want to do exactly what I'm doing, but I want to do more of it. And he's like, all right, let's build it. So like, he's on the back end, I'm on the front end of the phase.
Ah,
And then, I'm like, well, what are we going to do today? Like, I want to have a family day at the beach. We go and do it. Like, you're just so intentional with like the time
yeah.
we do have where I'm like, even honey, even if we're freaking psycho and we ended up like doing all this stuff because we thought that I was gonna die, like
I
amazing.
mean, what a great outcome. What a great outcome, actually.
Yes, exactly. I was like, if I end up being here, honey, and like I'm like, there's much beautiful women here on the island that you're totally gonna be set up for with success when I pass. But like, if that's all I did was bring us here, and then it turns out that you're stuck with me for the next 90 years because I am really healthy and so health conscious, I'm like, then I'm sorry, you are stuck with me if you want to be. But yeah,
Cool. And for you, right, like makes it mm, allowed you and your husband to be able to realign, like a
yeah.
hard realignment.
Yeah,
Yeah, which is
exactly.
beautiful.
It's like, yeah, why are we doing this? Like keeping up with the Joneses in a place we don't want to be with people we don't align with. And like literally talking to you, I'm like, oh my gosh, you got to come to Hawaii because you would just be like in your glory with all the woman circles. But then at the same time, like Paulina said to me at times, she's talked about like going back to the States and like reintegrating. She's like, Carley, I know you are all here in this portal. And she's like, but we got to like we have to disperse and like go and take the healing to these people. And it's like,
Yeah,
like blade sharpening a blade here for sure. But at the same
yeah,
time, when she's like,
yeah,
but now let's take the medicine to the people, like where they're not
yeah.
they don't have healers that understand like you do, you know, like right within the vicinity to get to you.
Yeah, no, 1,000%. And I feel that too. It's like, there is this such power in like that network of love and that
Mm-hmm.
network of, you know, sacred healing and divine feminine. And I think that I'm like excited, like that there are, places like Hawaii in particular, or like Arizona, or,
Yes.
other places all around the world
Mm-hmm.
that have such depth of wisdom and knowledge and hold the space for. And at the same time, in my little suburban area in New Jersey, like I have such a beautiful network of divine feminine and women that
Mm.
was surprising to me because I'm not from here originally.
Oh,
So,
oh,
it
really? Yeah.
is, yeah, it has been really beautiful. And I think that at the same time, like I know I was meant to be here. Even though I
Aw.
did fight it, I definitely fought it. And especially by the people that have just like come into my life that
Yeah.
are, geographically close to me as well. So
Yeah.
it's just like it's such a humbling, beautiful, like warm feeling to just feel
Yeah.
like connected across the world, to you and
Totally.
Paulina and like so many other people, but then also have like hold that local
Yes.
love
Be both.
and you
Yes.
know that
Mm-hmm.
community. And I think having both only creates like strength, like
Mm-hmm.
within the entire collective. It's like
Totally.
you're like strengthening like the webs like all
Yeah.
around so that
Yeah.
it's just this beautiful, beautiful like community
Mm-hmm.
that is just here to like support and love up on each of us, which is what we're here, like we're
Literally,
all
ultimately what we're
the
here for.
exactly, like literally that's it. So, yeah, I love that. Oh my
Yay!
And then we've done some stuff in past lives. I feel like for sure, like
Yes.
you're a sister. I love you. I definitely I want to have you on my podcast too. And maybe
Yay!
we can talk about like well, you can tell me what you want to chat about, like whatever you feel called to,
Mm.
but like even like when you were saying like your three birth experiences
Oh
and
yeah.
like your evolution, oh my God. And then yeah, and then you're just even your awake just like your experiences because
Oh
that's what
yeah.
I feel like on my podcast in particular, but just really came from having amazing conversations with people that I was just like I wish this was being broadcast to like the entire world because
Yeah.
just having like exposure to somebody else's journey
Yeah.
allows you like almost gives you permission to be like, oh, you know what, like I really like I'm safe and I have permission to fully go to the depths that of which I'm being called to,
Yeah, it's true. And
for
it's,
each
I feel
person.
it too, like it's been a technique that I have used all my life as a personal trainer and a coach. I'm the person that goes to the most vulnerable sharing. Like I will tell you
Yes.
everything about my life. And I always like subconsciously knew that in doing this, I just built these intense, strong bonds from the start. So I would just be
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, well, from the start, I just lay all my dirty laundry out there. But it was always with a
Yeah.
lesson. So it's like, this is what it was, and this is why, and when this is where the struggle was. And people are like, wow. And now it's with that vulnerable share. Now I'm safe to say I had struggled with that too. And so like it's so interesting because having three and literally having such complete different birth experiences. Look at, I have my placenta on the wall right here. Look at my,
Ah, beautiful. Oh my goodness, that's beautiful for your third.
yeah, that was my third stamping. So the first, yeah, I would love to share. Like if you're like wanting the personal experiences of mothers, I can share on the birth stories. Each one of them was just so very different as I awakened and became more in tune with my body and myself and what was happening. And this is one in like the non-spiritual, really like physical world. That was number one. And my life was chaotic and
Mm-hmm.
really masculine, really. And then number two
Mm-hmm.
was like really like basically saying no to Western medicine and like accepting that I would die, like because they were telling me you're gonna die, uterine rupture. And I'm like, fine, I don't
Sure.
care. I'm like, what do you want me to sign? I'm okay to die. And I looked at my husband's eyes and I was
Mm-hmm.
like, it's okay, let me go. And I like did the it's okay, let me go.
Yeah.
And his head came out and I was like, oh my God. Cause I was like, I didn't die. I was confused because like they were telling me, that I was gonna die. And so I was like, I don't
Yeah.
care. Like, don't touch me. I'm going then. This is the way I was meant to. And then with the
Mm-hmm.
third one, like the pre-evolution of him being here, and then the manifestation with him being in here. And then I was actually channeling the island spirits when I was giving birth to him. And it was the most incredible,
Mm.
euphoric birth. And I had dolphins like assisting me the entire time through my
Ah.
pregnancy. So I wasn't with like doctors or like doulas or anything. Actually, I just was with the
Mm-hmm.
dolphins. And every time I went
Nice.
to the beach, I just got in the water with the dolphins and I just asked like, hey, would you please like be here and protect me and just make sure everything's well? And the dolphins would just stay with me for hours every time I got in the ocean.
Ah.
And yeah, and so they were like, he's
Amazing.
my dolphin baby. And I know he's a really
Oh.
guy. So when he gets in the water, he is like, and he's one now, and he just is like, and I swear he's got like the dolphin energies like ingrained in him because he's just a little water bug and loves it. And so, yeah, so in that area, but my like I guess if you talk more of like the logic of like I guess my credentials or background, I'm functional nutrition coach, so I work a lot with like taking out inflammatory and getting rid of the disease and using food as medicine. So that's like the biggest thing is
Yeah.
using our food as our medicine
Mm.
and fueling the body, and the holistic
Love
approach.
that.
Like, most of my time and energy, like you said, is going into the traumas and triggers and what I call tough training, which is traumas and unmet emotional needs, and then our food story and food um uh
Mm.
like intolerances or things that our body might be telling us that we are just like emotionally don't want to face. Like I really don't want to hear
Mm.
that I don't tolerate dairy because I fucking love ice cream. And
Yeah.
so it's like sometimes people confuse like I can't give stuff up or I can't change with I won't, I won't change.
Mm.
And
Mm.
I was addicted to food as a trainer. Like I've been in this industry for 15 years and I was heavily addicted to food. I also was heavily addicted to exercise. And so you
Mm-hmm.
tell that I was addicted to food because I was also addicted to exercise. So like I would just try to, keep it going. And so it wasn't until like I really addressed that piece of like, wait, food is medicine. Why am I stuffing my fucking pie hole right now?
Yeah.
You know?
Mm.
And
Mm.
so that's harder to look at, when it's like, okay, well, I'm stressed. It's like, well, I'm stressed and it does feel good to eat ice cream. And then after I eat enough ice cream, I'll keep craving more and then I'll fix it with the next thing. Then I'll make myself a brownie. Now that I did that, now I'm so lethargic. We've had an insulin spike. We've had the crash. We've had the dairy. We had the casein results, tropomyophene in my body. I'm feeling good, blissed out. I pass out, go to bed, you know, and then you
Yeah.
wake up and do
Yeah.
it again. So even though I was
Yeah.
like that health professional, that like I was a trainer in the gym and like eating these veggie salad smoothies and stuff like that. When I went home, I did those patterns that just
Yeah.
I learned to do. That's how I learned to cope. So,
Sure.
yeah, with looking at like the addiction aspect of food and using food as medicine. And obviously, that doesn't go in a silo that's not in a silo from our life stressors, our relationships, like, are you
Yeah.
unfulfilled in your work? Are you unfulfilled in your partnership with like a loved one? Are you unfulfilled? Like, where is it? Because then what we do is we're like, okay, I want to go shop. I binge on shopping. I binge on
Yep.
porn. I binge on a sex addict. I binge on spending. I binge on eating. It's somewhere
Mhm.
that we will take that energy and focus and dump it. So, yeah,
Yeah.
any of those things. I love to talk
1,000%.
about like, yeah, food is medicine, the intuitive, spiritual aspect of like the healing, because that stuff is like incredible to me. And then yeah, birth and all things birth. And like it's interesting because before I just was having such a hard time niching in. Like I was so afraid of working with women because of the
Mm-hmm.
mess self that I took on for so many years. And I'm like, I don't want to listen
Mm.
to women griping about their bullshit, you know, like that was like the math like putting up.
Yeah,
And
totally.
yeah, and so then like all these women around me like watching me mom and like just like, wow, God, you're such an inspiration. You need to work more with women. You need to, and then I have some spiritual and tuned like beings like me, and they're like, hey, Carley, I just got another message. You need to hone in, just work with the women. And I actually accidentally had like 4 clients who were infertile, and I was like, why is this happening? And so that's when my husband's like, don't you see it? Like you are just being called right to
Mm.
this niche. And so, and working not with just like, okay, yes, let's look at the doctor reports. Like, okay, yes, let's look at your labs. Okay, now we can see
Sure,
that we're getting better. Now we can see there's not insulin resistance. Now we can see you're not pre-diabetic. Now we can see, these actual lab
sure.
markers, if that helps build your knowledge. But like, ultimately what I see is the evolution of that woman actually being like, she's
Yeah.
stripping away her fears. She's stripping away the
Mm.
trauma. And now, like, this
Mm.
being actually wants to come into somebody who took the time to heal rather than someone like me who they came to me and then they had to deal with me healing. They were like pulling it out of me every second of every minute of every day. And I had to keep looking at it, like my kids, like
Mm-hmm.
they pick at the right wounds. And I'm like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
triggered right now. And I'm like, I need to do some work here.
Yeah, 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 a
So
thousand percent. I mean, all of that. I feel like we could
all of
t
it.
chat about for hours.
Yes.
And
How
I
long are
would,
your sessions?
um, yeah. So yeah, all right. Say, all right, maybe let me text you, or message you like
Yeah.
sometimes, and then
Yeah.
maybe we can hop on to mine, and then
Yes.
whatever, keep collabing. I'm open to collab, in
Yes.
whatever way. I'm so excited. I'm just
Amazing.
so happy to have spent some time with you, and thank you for, I feel, very like connected to you, just in kind of all the ways. So I'm just very grateful
Aw,
and very
thank
happy to
you.
have like been able to connect with you this way today.
Me too. Thank you so much. It like literally made my birthday. I was like, I'm like gonna schedule this. And I'm
That's
like,
right. Happy
it's
birthday
my
on the
birthday and I get
1st.
to, and yes, and you're like amazing. And I was like, I just am like so excited about this today. Like, which I am anyways when I talk about it, but like, I'm like, I just feel like this is going to be really, like, really great. Like, I just want to be here. So amazing. Okay, send me some times and we'll do podcast. Yes.
Alrighty.
Thank you. Have a good night and bye. Thank you.